feel like I know everyone in this room. I'm looking out, so I know everyone in the room is smarter than me, so that helps. Today I'm doing Phonegap plus jQuery equals awesome, and I just added parentheses fast because, in my opinion, that's what makes it awesome. I'm going to do let's see here. A little bit about myself. Right now, I'm a front-end developer for Reach Local. I work with a lot of people in the room right now. In side projects, I do mobile development, as well as back-end development, some design, UI work under 9 Rhinos with Daryl. Daryl, raise your hand. Awesome designer. You should know him. Personal side projects are litlift.com, which is a novel writing application, kind of novel organization. So if you want to write a book, and basically everyone in the world says they want to write a book.
I don't.
The heckling started already. We also did an app called Skill Sketch, which I'm going to be using some of the code from today for examples of what you can do with Phonegap and how quickly you can do it. I also did a small native iOS app called litlift characters, which is just to extend one of the more well-used features of litlift.com, which is a character generator. A lot of people spend a lot of time when they're writing their books trying to come up with names, so I just created a simple name generator for people. All right. Skill Sketch, which is our first app, and this is all Phonegap HTML. Actually, the bulk of it uses Phonegap, but almost very, very little for the native functionality. Almost all of it is done in pure JavaScript. It's in the App Store right now. It's, again, Phonegap, jQuery Mobile, and HTML5. If you want to check it out, you can download it. Just search Skill Sketch. It should work for the iPad and all that stuff as well. But it'll give you a good idea of what we're talking about today. So why should you use Phonegap? In my opinion, who in here is a web developer in some respect? It's basically everybody. That's where all software has moved over the last few years, and that's where our skill sets have moved as well, just to stay current. For those of you who are iOS and Android developers, you have my sympathies, specifically if you have to use Xcode every day. I don't like it, which is why I tend to go the Phonegap route. But Phonegap is nice because we get to use the skill sets we use every day in web development, but to build apps that we can put in the App Store, because that's where you're going to make your money, to be quite honest. And specifically the iPhone one, just because it converts better. And you get to use the native functionality of the OSs with Phonegap, because they've kind of written this nice library that goes between native functionality called by JavaScript calls. And so why should you use jQuery Mobile on top of that? Well, the one thing that the iPhone, I think, has accomplished so well is it has brought up user expectations of user interfaces. If you have bad UI on an iPhone app, your app's not going to sell. It's going to get low ratings, and people aren't going to use it. And I think that Apple has done such a good job, and John, who's right here, will tell you how well of a good job they have done at creating UI elements in Xcode for iOS that, in my opinion, that's why the iPhone is so popular. It's just, it looks so pretty. It functions so nicely, and people like that. And so what jQuery Mobile has attempted to do was what they did with jQuery UI, which is bring some of the nice, well-documented, easy-to-maintain, and speedy elements of jQuery UI to the mobile phone. And they've used jQuery to accomplish it. So a quick overview of what we're going to go over today. Creating Phonegap app from scratch, adding jQuery Mobile, and a page structure, which I think is one of the nicest features of jQuery Mobile and allows you to attain the speed that you want. The native functionality, how do you use the camera? How do you use the accelerometer? How do you get GPS locations from the native phone using Phonegap? Extending that native functionality, if there's something you want to do, such as send an email from the native email library, you can do it using Phonegap. You just have to know how to extend it. Then we're going to add some external services. Most apps now, in reality, are almost shells for connecting to some type of web service. Taking JSON, doing something with it, giving it back. And then finally, we're going to have questions and hopefully some answers. So first, creating the basic web app. Here, I've just kind of highlighted the steps you're going to need to do. You're going to select a Phonegap-based app, give it a name, location. But this is where it's a little weird, at least in Xcode. It's going to fail. We know it. So here's how you fix it. So open up Xcode. Ooh. You want to load a new project. You're going to select Phonegap-based application. Give it a name. I usually run mine in the iPhone simulator. And then go ahead and hit play. First thing you'll notice, wow, the resolution is horrible. First thing you're going to notice is that it's going to error out the first time. You expect that, you want that. What happens in the background is Phonegap went ahead and found out what you're using and created the files it needs to work. So what you do is you go into your project and you click Show in Finder. What wasn't there a second ago is this www folder, which is where you do all of your development for Phonegap. So the first thing you're going to need to do is add that to the project. And you do that by, and you better get used to this, by dragging it on top of that project link at the top. One thing I don't think they do a good job of in any of the documentation that I've been through is letting you know which of these options you need to use to actually get things to work. The one that I've always found successful is this combination. You want to copy the items into the destinations folder. You want to create the folder references, and you need it to add it to those targets. I think by default, it actually comes up with create groups for any added folders. If you do this, you're going to be sitting there struggling, wondering why your stuff isn't working until you come back and eventually add it this way. So just click Finish, and now your www folder will appear in the project list. So at this point, you should be able to run the application and have it do something. And there it is. Phonegap is now working. So any changes we make via straight HTML in this index.html file that it was created for you. Yeah?
Does it matter where in the hierarchy you drag those?
Yes, it has to be at that top level. Xcode does a few things differently. It can think you're adding resources into specific locations, especially with like icons and splash screens and things like that. Those all go in very particular areas. So you want to just add it to the project and let Xcode determine where it goes. And feel free to interrupt me anytime you want. I don't have a train of thought to lose, so it's not going to bother me. So here's the index.html that it created. So if we wanted to say, just prove that this is working, we're just going to add a quick test here. Save it. I also hate Xcode as an editor. I refuse to use it, so I use Aptana. So don't think you have to get stuck using this. It will update your files for you automatically. So now when we run it, you're going to see, hey, this is working. So we're actually making changes to code now. All right, so let's get back to the PowerPoint for a second. So we've created a basic app in Phonegap. Now what can we do with it, and how should we do it? We're going to add jQuery Mobile. The reason that we're going to add jQuery Mobile is, again, we want to bring in the UI elements that are already there and people are used to from the native UI. And this is going to allow us to do it a lot faster than build them by hand. So to do that, you're just going to download the latest files for jQuery, jQuery Mobile. Now, this is a little different. When you're acting within the www folder, you want to treat it as a normal directory on your computer and not as part of the project from Xcode. So if I were to get these files and then try to drag them to Xcode, like I just did with the www folder, it's going to produce some errors. So within that, you want to treat it as a non-project folder. And then you're going to add the resources to the index.html the same way you would anywhere else. So I already have that stuff ready. So I just have this folder I called jQuery Mobile. I'm going to add those to the www folder. Okay. And then I have some code over here ready. Just like you would anything else. And I prefer adding them after this where Phonegap is loaded, where the Phonegap JS is. In my opinion, you should load everything after. because if you don't, there are specific cases where it can cause some errors. So now if we save that, I'll just run it again real fast. You'll see that the styling, already jQuery Mobile has went in and started styling things different. The fonts are all different. Backgrounds are different. And I wonder if there's a way I can shrink this. But so we know now that jQuery Mobile is working. We know it's installed. So now what can we use it for? That's the important part. All right, so real quick, we're going to go through the elements of jQuery Mobile, and then we're going to make use of some. So if we bring up Go, Pooter, go. Doing anything? Oh, no. Don't be stuck. This is why I switched from Windows.
Network saturation.
It's not doing anything. You just know it's stuck. I can't even close the PowerPoint.
What?
Oh, wait. Cannot look. OK. Oh, great. Well, that's not good. Let's see here. OK, we're on guest. We can't get to the internet. All right, let's try this one more time. All right, so here, hopefully this will work. It's going to work. Apparently not. All right. Well, we'll skip some of the elements and hopefully come back to them in a minute. All right. What I was going to show is some of the buttons and things like that, and how they're already styled for you, and how you can really quickly make use of them. But I'll come back to that. The one thing in jQuery Mobile that, in my opinion, is the single most, the nicest and single most useful is what I call single-page layouts, and that's also what they call it on the site. And basically, what it allows you to do is write the entirety of your program in a single HTML file. Now, this has several nice benefits. If you write a lot of large-scale web applications and you use Ajax a lot, what's nice, obviously, is that it becomes much more like an old C#.NET program where you have all of those variables accessible all the times. You're not worrying about passing URLs with specific parameters set. You have access to that data all the time. What a single-page layout does is it takes a bunch of different files, puts them all in one, and because of that, you can treat it as such. You have a bunch of JavaScript variables that are available to all of the pages all the time without having to worry about parameters and what state is this in because it's in the state it was ever last left in it. That doesn't have to be reinitialized or anything. And the other huge benefit, and the bigger one, is speed. People like the apps to feel fast. And when you have it all on a single page, it's already loaded into the memory. So switching between everything there's no hiccups. There's no loading screens. There's no nothing. I've had people use our app, which is completely on Phonegap, and not know it was a Phonegap app, not know that it's not anything other than native code. And if you would have gone with multi-page layouts or not done a single-page layout, there would have been loading. There would have been small hiccups, small time freezes that people would have wondered why that was. And so how you do this is pretty simple. In jQuery Mobile, which is right here, I'm going to drag some code over. What they do is they designate a bunch of data roles. They make use of the HTML5 data roles. And one thing you can do is say, I'm going to designate this block of code right here where it says page as a page. You can do this as many times as you want in this file. You can have as many of these pages as you'd like. So from here to here is one full page. And because it's the first thing that I'm going to put into the code, it also designated it kind of as the home screen. So I'm going to pop that in there and then get rid of this on-body load so we don't have JavaScript stuff popping at us. And then I'm going to grab the other one so you can kind of see what these are doing. So what I'm doing is I've created 3 separate pages to kind of give you an example of how jQuery Mobile works and how fast it works.
You lost your closed body tag.
Oh, good call. All right, so load that up. So here we have a single-page layout. This single-page layout is the first section that's denoted as a page. It has a header. What's nice is, real quickly, I've just created one div and assigned it the role header, and jQuery Mobile goes ahead and assigns it the styling that makes it look exactly like an iPhone header. I have a data area content. It knows, oh, we're going to style this like some content. And one of the most used features in iOS development is the list view that, list of elements that you want to take you, act as navigation. So here we have just a list view, which is a list of LI. And ultimately, we're going to have some kind of button. So I just gave a regular link, added the data role button, and we get a button. What produces is this. Now, what's nice is it's already gone ahead and has a whole bunch of default settings loaded in through jQuery Mobile, such as this styling. I can change this styling real easily by determining what data theme I want. I think there's like A through G or something. So say I want it to be, I think, all blue. I think it's B. And then I can change the styling 100 different ways. And then I'm a front-end guy, so for me, I can go into the CSS and tweak it and change it any way I want, change the sprites, whatever, and it's all done just so fast. It also goes ahead and loads in the defaults for transitions. One of the default transition, I believe, still in iOS is the slide. Everything slides to the right and to the left. Well, that's done for me. So if I want to go to another page, I click my link, it slides to the next page. Instant. No, no work on my part. I've done nothing at this point. And what this just right now is just a list of books I need for a whole bunch of mystery series. Now, you'll notice one thing real fast. So we went to the next page. In this case, we went to a page called Wolf. So here we have, I clicked this Nero Wolf link, which was the first element in our data list. And it goes to a local page called Wolf, which is right below it. And what it's doing in the background is it's handling all that de-indexing for you, so everything's hidden, nothing shows when you don't want it to be, which is also nice because now Facebook's new menuing system, how you click that button at the top and it kind of slides over to the right? You can add that really, really easily via jQuery Mobile now, because if you put something outside of a page, it's always going to be in the background. So you can add a menu like that in a couple seconds. But here, so we have a page called Wolf. We have a header. And if we want to say add a back button to go back, just like most of the apps you use, you go to content, you get what you want, you go back. Now hopefully this will work. I'm really hoping that I get web access. I'm going to try turn it off for a second. Ooh, maybe.
Should I stop this torrent, maybe? Or?
Yeah. It's always Jesse. It's always Jesse. All right. It's taken forever. Well, I'm trying. Let me see if I can remember how to do this from scratch. All you need to do to add a back button, actually, is to add a link. And then, I don't even know if you have to give it an href, but you give it a data role of back, and tell it what you want it to look like. And I think, this is why I was hoping I'd have the web so I wouldn't have to do all this from memory. Just like that, we had a back button. Now, again, it's not going to work right now because I'm missing the link to whatever I wanted to have it as.
Don't you probably just want the href to be pound?
Well, you can do that too, but you can actually, there's a data role, so you don't even have to know what those are. And that's what I was trying to do. If I want to say add an href here where I know it's going back to that home page, because this is only a 2-page app, I can go ahead and add in just a standard link back to home, which is what this first initial page is called. And that will work. But if you want it really generic throughout your entire app, you can just call it data role back with some other tag that I can't remember off the top of my head now, and that will work as well. Also, if you use the data role back, it'll actually style it with the arrow, so you get the whole back experience. So there, real fast, you can add things so quickly and build apps, in my opinion, so much faster that it really, really makes it nice. Okay, so That's kind of a single page layout. Now you can do this with a whole lot of pages. Skill Sketch, which I'm going to show you here in a minute for some other examples, has basically, I think, 7 different pages, but because they're in a single page, it all loads real fast. All right, so native functionality with Phonegap. I can't connect to the web. I was going to walk you through all the different things that you could do, just kind of list them off. But off the top of my head, camera, GPS, moving your phone around, the accelerometer, alerts, native alerts. I think they're trying to add notifications right now, so if you have a back-end service on the phone, that does require a plugin, though. And just a whole lot of stuff that you can take advantage of. So we'll go ahead and show you how to take advantage of one of those right now. So say you're like me and you are a book nut and you have a very long list of books that you want to buy. You always want to know where the local bookstore is, not just a bookstore, but used bookstores. To me, they're like little treasure troves. You know, I just love those places. So what I always care about is where I am and where the nearest bookstores are. So here, all you need to do to make use of that functionality is Phonegap provides you with this list of libraries. In this case, they're all under the Navigator object. So what I've done here is the one thing I will say, if you're going to use jQuery mobile, you have to get out of a lot of habits. How many of you use jQuery every day? Okay. You're going to have to get out of a lot of the habits that you have right now, which is creating a document.ready, putting everything in there, and moving it all like that. If you're using a single-page layout, everything technically loads when the document loads, but individual pages load differently. So you want to get used to the whole idea of page inits, not documents, but individual pages, those single-page layouts that we talked about. So here I have one for the home page. When it inits, I want to take that button I had, I want to add a click event to it, and ultimately I want to get the current position of my phone right now in the world via its GPS, not via HTML5's geolocation, which is bad to begin with, but the actual phone. So I can save that. And here, when I run it, actually, I don't know if I have the alert on. Yeah, I do. Okay. So now when I run it and click that Find Stores Near Me button, it'll ask, would you like to allow your current location? I'll click OK. There, it got my actual GPS coordinates. And that's just one of the native functionality, list of native functionality things you can do via Phonegap. And what they've done is they've built essentially this set of libraries that act as a go-between, middleware between iOS and JavaScript. And so we've just called one of those. Okay. All right. Let's go back here for a second. Remember what's next. Phonegap plugins. So it's really nice that you can make use of a lot of the native functionality. Camera, obviously, being a big one. But there's a lot of stuff that you want to make use of. Like if you want to email somebody or take a screenshot or say there's a lot of libraries for barcode scanners or QR code scanners or whatever. Phonegap doesn't offer that, and so a lot of people were leaning away from it. But now you can add these plugins to it, and if you're an iOS developer or an aspiring iOS developer like me, you can write small libraries to bring some of that functionality into Phonegap. And I'll give you an example of how to do that right now. There's really only a few things you need to know for the vast majority of plugins. One, go to this link, because this guy who has them up there has done just a ton of them. And he's going to save you a lot of time. Most plugins are going to come with 3 files: a JS file, a header file, and the .env file. And how you're going to add that plugin is you're going to add those files to the project, and then you need to, in addition, add the plugin to Phonegap's what they call the plist, so that it knows the plugin exists. And we're going to do that real fast. So in my Finder here, documents, MinneBar, screenshot. I have one of those that's used quite a bit, which is the screenshot plugin. All right. So here I have the header file and this other file. What's .m stand for? Anybody? I don't remember. It's killing me. So we want to take those and we want to add those to the project. The same way we added the www folder. I'm going to take those and actually add those to the project itself. Again, it's going to give you some options. No, see, I didn't add it to the project. I was just below it, apparently. Get out of my way.
So you're just above it.
I'm just above it?
Yeah.
This resolution's killing me.
No.
There we go. Nice. All right. I hate Xcode, I'm telling you. We do want to, again, copy the items and create the folder. It knows what to do with them, but you do not want to create the groups. So we'll add those, and it goes ahead and copies those files in there. Now, in addition, we need to, I know, I don't care about that right now. All right. So we do want to go ahead and add that to the www folder, the screenshot.js. This is what we're actually going to call to handle that native, to call that native code. And so we're going to go up here and add that in. And that was called screenshot.js. All right, now, at this point, if you've gone to that link to look at the plugins, you're going to think it's going to work because these things are horribly documented, which is why I'm actually giving this presentation, because it took me a lot of time to figure out how to get a lot of this stuff to work. What you want to do is you're going to have to add a step. In Xcode, there are these supporting files, and Phonegap's one of them. And what it does is, this file is kind of the gateway between what you want to do on the front end and what's going on the native side. So if you want to say access services, APIs, you're going to need to go to this file. If you want to add plugins, you're going to need to go to this file. And, you're not going to find that documentation a lot of places. So here's how you do it. In the plugins, you're going to open that up, and it's going to give you a list of the plugins that it's already using. The accelerometer, the camera, the contacts, the ones we kind of covered. These are the native ones. You're going to need to add one to that. Now, a lot of the ones that you're going to look at, they're actually not going to tell you what you need to add. It's a real pain. So how you find that out, and this took me a while to figure out too, is you want to go into the header file and see what the actual class is that they've created for the plugin. What's being labeled as a plugin. In this case, it's just screenshot. And then we need to know what's JavaScript using to actually make the call. And to know that, we need to go into the www folder and then go into the JS and see, okay, when Phonegap executes this call, what's it actually calling? In this case, it's just calling screenshot. So in this case, we got lucky. They're both the exact same thing. They're both called screenshot. So if we go into Phonegap, we're going to add a new plugin. And in both cases, it's just called screenshot. Okay? That's how you add it. Now, how you make use of it, I'm going to open up a new, so for Skill Sketch, the game that I showed you was called Skill Sketch. It was called Doodle Duels. And, but Apple stole the name. All right, so how do you make use of that? So here I've added a few of these plugins, and I'm going to show you how to do it. In the index.html file, you're just going to, see here I've got screenshot loaded, a whole bunch of code that I brought in because I wasn't sure how long I was going to have time to show. So, thought this was going to be bigger. Here we go. Can I close this? Nice. Okay, so to actually do the calling, when that JavaScript file calls from the plugins, it's going to add its list to windows.plugins. In this case, it's going to add screenshot, and then it's going to add, it only has one particular method, and that's save screenshot. So now when we actually run the game, I got to turn my simulator off. So what I've made it do here is when I draw something and I click to save it, it's going to save it to both the Skill Sketch gallery, which is in the game, and your regular iPhone gallery using the screenshot capabilities. So now, how do I, where's the button? Yeah, I know that. All right, if there were a home button to actually go into the iOS, you'd be able to see that. Let's see if I can switch. Where? Hardware, home. Nice. All right, so now if we go into Photos, later, we've added some things into the into the Phonegap library, from the Phonegap library into the actual photo gallery. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you real quickly, and I'm trying to go fast because there's a lot to get through, is how to make use of external services. Most apps now that are in the App Store are some kind of hybrid between web UI and native code. And the reason is simple. You can change web code a whole lot faster than you can change native code. Specifically, if it's out there on some server somewhere, now how do you make use of it? How do you bring that code into Phonegap? That's pretty simple, but if you search the web, it's going to appear impossible. So here's actually how you do it. Again, that pinfo list, I'm going to close this one for a second. Stop tasks. That pinfo list has a list of external plugins. And right now, this app doesn't have any. What they should just tell you is that all you need to really do is go to this and add items to it. You want to add some kind of item, and then wildcard characters are allowed. Say you want to add something from Google Maps or Google Charts, which is one I've had to use in the past. I would do star.google.com. Now, when you do that, the first few times it's probably going to error out because things like Google make use of, I think for Google Maps they make use of 3 or 4 different domains. gstatic.com, google.com, maps.somethingelse.com. And so you're going to need to look through your error log in Xcode, which is actually right here, this little section right here, if we were to run it, to see what those lists are. And it's different, it changes quite a bit, so you're going to need to look for that. Now, how do you actually make use of that? So what I did was, yesterday I wrote a little service for Doodle Duels or Skill Sketch to make use of one of these back-end services. So I'm going to open recent. What I wanted to do was I wanted to go out to the web and, oh, you know what? I'm not connected to the web. Oh! Which one? Open Garden, or I don't see anyone. Boardroom. Let's see if it's working now. There's too many geeks in one building for this wireless network. All right, it's dead. All right. Well, here's how it works. Once you have added that to your list and show navigator. So in this case, what I've done is for the Phonegap pinfo list, I added a couple local hosts. Let's drag those over. All right. Well, one of them is skillsketch.appspot.com. And while I did that, I wrote a Python service that just took in a 64-bit encoded ping and saves it and then spits it out. Because one thing you will want to know, if you're using camera or Canvas or any of these things to create imagery on the phone via Phonegap, is they're going to be base 64 encoded pings. They're not actually going to be, and so saving them is a little bit of a pain. Just random thing. But so how you actually call them is, let me go back. You're going to make an AJAX call just like you would anywhere else. But you're going to need to include some things. You're going to need to tell it it's a cross-domain call. Because, again, you're using HTML, and in HTML, calling another service via AJAX is not something that the browser wants to allow you to do because that's a security gap. You'd have all kinds of cross-site scripting if you could just call anything you want. So we're going to tell it we're going to cross-domain. You've already added it to its external host list. So Phonegap, you've told Phonegap, I trust this domain name. You're going to put in the full one, HTTP, whatever, skillsketch.apps.com, and then it's just going to call it. So if I were to save one now and actually be connected to the internet, I'd be able to go to skillsketch.appspot.com and show you what I just drew. And so it'll have connected that service, saved it, posted it, and the app would have gotten back a notification that this worked. So That's how you connect to external services. And it's the same process for basically anything. It's all right. I'm almost out of time anyway, so I just want to open the rest for questions. So any questions? We went through a lot of stuff pretty quick. So
when you're building an app, if you want to support Retina,
yes,
thank you.
You can do that.
Is it?
I will show you.
Do you just do it right in the CSS?
You do it right in the CSS, and it's actually not as hard as you would think. All right, so I left all this code in one file just so I could find this stuff a little easier. Okay, here we go. You're going to use WebKit backgrounds. This file right here, screen paper, is sized for an HD for the Retina display iPhone. But you're going to use WebKit background size to tell it we want to fit a 320 pixels because that's actually how much shows up on the phone. And it's going to be in Retina display. And if it's non-Retina display, it's still going to be correctly sized. So that will work. I assume that was going to be one of the questions. Yes, HTML5 has a local data store. So skill sketch here, let me just bring that back up. Run it. It's when you draw something, save it. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing that base 64 encoded ping, which is just essentially a whole lot of text, and I'm making use of the local data store, which is just SQLite, I believe, and I'm creating a gallery that exists right on the phone in the app. And because apps create their own temp file, this SQLite is separate than Safari's local web store, so people can clear the cache on their phone all they want, and it'll never affect your app. The same process. The only thing that's different is you're using Eclipse. I think the pinfo list stuff is a little bit different. I think they have another file that's called something else, but you still need to go through the same processes. And you can make use of a lot of the CSS tricks for like what you want to do is say you have a full screen background on a website and you want it to scale, and keep that ratio. You'll want to apply that same CSS trick to your HTML so that whether you're using an Android phone that is this big or an Android phone that's this big or whatever, that the sizing always looks good.
I would assume that Apple would kind of follow up on this trend by kind of trying to wall off like applications that they don't like. Do you think there's
If you search the web for Phonegap and the App Store and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of people have been denied who have built Phonegap apps. And I think the main reason for this is simple. What a lot of large companies are trying to do is get in the App Store as quickly as they possibly can. They have this mobile website already that they've got hosted somewhere, and so all they're trying to do is create a Phonegap app that points to a URL. And Apple doesn't want that. That's what they invented, the mobile web stuff for and the ability to save the icon to your home screen. Skill sketch here is all on the phone. I'm only calling an external service to actually save the image externally if I want to. And on the current version, the one that's in the App Store right now, it's not even doing that. So I think if you're just trying to use Phonegap to essentially bypass creating something, you're going to get rejected. But if you're making use of it, a lot of Facebook's current app is actually a web UI. Up here, somebody had one. No, that's the beauty of Phonegap. With a native app, you have to write it in Objective-C and you have to write it in Android code, Java. With this, it's all HTML, and HTML is universal. So I can take this same index.html file. Right now, I can submit it to phonegap.com, I think, or build.phonegap.com, and they'll actually send me back the binaries for Android, BlackBerry, and I think 2 other ones or something. Right here. It's easy. I built 99% of the application just in Chrome and didn't load it into the phone until the very last second. In fact, I didn't even have a Mac when I started this project. So I built most of it on like a Thursday night with Daryl sending me images just in my Ubuntu box. Got it working as an index, as an HTML file because that's all it is. And then I put it in and made use of the Phonegap to wrap around it. Well, there are definitely limitations. I'm considering a couple other apps right now that may not work for Phonegap. But if what you're doing is presenting data to the user and not consuming a whole lot of data, then it's just a whole lot faster to use PhoneGap. Oh, there's Titanium. There's another one that just came out recently. I was reading on Hacker News. I used PhoneGap essentially because I think they were the first, and they were the first one I read about. And and I liked trying something, and it was available when I wanted to start the project. But I think Titanium actually does things a little bit differently, and Jesse can help me out with this. I think what they're actually trying to do is you're trying to write the code. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So I know it's a little bit different, and so I just happen to use PhoneGap. Yeah. Media is one of them. In fact, you can use media for to add sounds. One thing that I'm kind of working on right now is when you scratch the page or scribble, kind of looking for maybe a pencil sound or something when you draw. So if anybody downloads the game, feel free to send me comments or suggestions or whatever. Oh yeah. Actually, Skill Sketch hides that, and that's in the P list. Actually, there's a there's one of them is in the actual app, not in PhoneGap, but in the app's P list. There is something called status bar is initially hidden, and you set it to yes. It's right there. I have not made use of them yet. I'm kind of thinking of them for my next thing, but yeah, essentially if Safari supports it, this supports it. And what's really nice is I noticed a huge difference between the app now and the app I think 8 months ago, because Apple rewrote their JavaScript engine I think towards the end of last year, and then they pushed that to basically everything on the phone uses the Web UI kit. So it's remarkably fast, in my opinion. Anybody else? Yeah, you can make it universal. You're just going to do some different stuff with your HTML, but that's actually handled more at the Xcode level. Like when in Xcode in the main file here, and I don't know how to turn all this stuff off, but where is it? Summary, I think. You tell it which orientations, which devices that you actually support. In our case, we set it specifically to iPhone, just because we were, it was the beginning and we were trying to get whatever to work what we could. Anybody else? Is that it? All right. Okay, thanks.